Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast, is sponsored by the UPS Store Canada. More than 380 convenient neighborhood locations throughout Canada. The UPSstore.ca.
Welcome to another episode of Anytime Go.
Still trying to change the title of the podcast.
That was funny last week. Terry looks at her producer, Matthew, and goes, Anytime Go?
I'm quick with a turn of phrase, aren't I? I'm Terry DeMonte, that's Ted Bird, and thanks for downloading the episode of the Standing By podcast. Somebody mentioned to me last week, you don't have to mention who you are, Terry, we know who you are. Because, you know, I do my little videos after we record the podcast. Somebody said, don't say, hi, I'm Terry DeMonte. We know you're Terry DeMonte.
Yeah,
but
well,
I thought
it's
that's
force of habit.
Force of habit, and I thought that's a little presumptive, isn't it?
Presumptuous?
Presumptuous?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Of them or of you?
Of me.
Yeah.
To say, hi there.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Get a load of me.
It's your professional training.
Yeah,
and that's
true.
the difference between, in today's podcast world, they don't follow the rules.
Remember,
I don't know if there are rules necessarily, but, we do what we used to do on the radio.
Yeah.
But if you listen to podcasters, they just launch right into it.
Remember professional training?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were the days.
Yeah. Mentoring. Remember that?
I do. Excuse me.
Yeah. Someone who'd been doing what you wanted to do for 20 years would teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give you some tips.
Yeah. Not anymore.
No, sir.
No.
Let's start by saying thank you to our title sponsor, the good people at the UPS Store Canada. As it says on their website, looking for a domestic or international shipping company in Canada? Do you need help packing your fragile objects ahead of a big move? Or maybe your business needs the right kind of packaging material on an oversized delivery? The UPS Store in your community offers local and domestic shipping, plus international shipping options, which I've taken advantage of, packing services, which I've taken advantage of, and a wide range of moving supplies, which I've also taken advantage of in different places. I had a lot of visits to my UPS store when I lived in Calgary, a lot of things going back and forth between Calgary and Montreal when I lived in Calgary at the Crowfoot shopping center. Same thing in Langley, just not too far from my house. And now
Terry's a fugitive from justice, in case you haven't figured it out. And the UPS store has always helped him stay one step ahead of the law.
And now Jason Liverman out in the Isle of Parrots has helped us out a couple of times. Local people working in your neighborhood in over 400 locations across the country. With moving season around the corner here in Montreal, remember that's a good place to go get a few extra boxes, some packing tape, labels, anything that you need. They'll help you do so many different things, everything from a passport picture to shipping the old vase to your old Aunt Nellie across the country. They can help you with all of it. Start at the upsstore.ca and find the UPS store in your neighborhood.
Now, there are a couple of things that everybody's talking about. One is the Montreal Canadiens. We will address that in detail.
Yes.
And we're going to break with protocol and mention in passing that we're recording this the morning after the federal election.
Yes.
And we have to acknowledge it. We can't let it go by. We like to be a politics-free zone. We like to be somewhere where you can come and get away from that.
Yes. So we're not going to dive into it, but Ted and I had a discussion in the car this morning and said, it's the morning after the election. We have to acknowledge that the Liberals won a minority government, that Mark Carney will continue to be the prime minister. An
unprecedented
fourth term.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the comeback was from a 25-point deficit in the polls. And it's all thanks to Donald Trump and his 51st state talk. And who knows what's going to happen from here. We live in tumultuous times.
We sure do. And minority governments, sometimes they last and sometimes they don't. But we thought we would acknowledge the fact the election happened last night. And I wanted to mention that only 67%, I know that sounds high because I think something like 30% of people vote in a civic election. But you would have thought with the stakes as high as they were, that the other 33% of Canadians could have found a moment to get their ass off the couch and go to the polls. But such are the times we live in. So congratulations to Prime Minister Carney. Now, let's talk about, do you want to start with the Go Habs Go language police story, or should we go right to that?
Yeah, we could talk about that a little bit. That was, my first reaction to that, and I posted it on social media, it's the sort of thing that I used to get all fired up about.
Me too.
And now it's water off a duck's back. Yeah. It's just like, that's as I said, I've pitched my tent here, and that's the lay of the land.
That's exactly what you said, and I agreed with your post 100%.
And it has zero effect on my day-to-day life, whether the bus says Go Habs Go or Allez Canadiens Allez. All I know is that 21,000 plus at the Bell Centre say Go Habs Go.
Yeah.
That's the real world that we live in, regardless of what the OQLF says or whatever petty motherfucker who filed the complaint says.
I said to Jess, I reminded her that we had this conversation before we left British Columbia. I said, now we have to remember a few things, and one of them is we can't get our knickers in a knot when the language stuff happens. And I felt exactly the same as you. I don't care that much about it anymore. It's on this side of the coin, it's petty. On that side of the coin, it's protect the French language. Both you and I are supporters of protecting the French language. And I said to Jess, good luck to somebody who tries to get the Allez Canadiens Allez chant going at the Bell Centre.
It's been Go Habs Go for 100 years.
And to their credit, even the most ardent nationalists, including the Parti Québécois, said, oh no, this is stupid. So I think it was a heated issue. It was tailor-made for the Gazette.
Oh yeah,
because that fired off all the the letters about how petty it was and whatever. And I'm like you, that shit doesn't bother me anymore. I just like, what are you going to do?
I can't let it bother me. No. It's like taking the bait.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's taking the bait. And to your point, it's awfully petty to pick up the phone and say, I saw a sign that says Go Habs Go on the bus, and I don't like that, so I'm going to make a complaint. Anyway, it arrived, and then as fast as it arrived, it disappeared. So on that note, how about them Habs? Heartbreaking and exciting and all kinds of other words.
Game 3, which they won 6-3 at the Bell Centre, you could feel the electricity from the Bell Centre through the television.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't recall off the top of my head. I'm sure I've seen playoff games that exciting before. But, because it's in the moment, I'm saying to myself, I've never seen anything like this. That's like the atmosphere.
That was one of the greatest hockey games I've seen in many, many years.
Yeah.
It really was something.
Yeah, and the Canadians won it to close the gap to 2-1.
Yeah.
And then they lost a heartbreaker. I think the final was 5-2. In Game 4, but it was much closer than that because the Capitals got a couple of empty net goals, and that's what I said. I think I mentioned this last week. My friend Simon in Toronto said, "What do you think the Canadians' chances are, or what do you think about the Canadians in the playoffs?" And I said, "They'll compete. They always compete. They're always in it, right up until the end. Whether the end is bitter or joyous, they're always in it." And I posted a tweet during Game 3. After Slavkovsky scored that goal on that beautiful setup from Demidov when he ducked in behind the net and then fed it out front to Slavkovsky. And Lane Hudson had the other assist. And I put on Twitter, or X if you prefer, Slavkovsky from Hudson and Demidov. I think we're going to hear that a few more times in the future. Yeah, and somebody responded, are the three of them combined as old as you? And I did the math, and no. The three of them combined are 5 years younger than me. Isn't that funny?
That's a nice feeling, eh?
Well, no, it also speaks to the great future that this team has.
Yeah.
Even if they lose tonight, or if they win tonight and go back to Washington and lose there, they're trending in the right direction, and they're young, and they've got so much talent, and they're so exciting.
Yeah, lots to be excited about, and that hasn't been the case with the Habs for many, many years now. So there's lots to talk about and lots to be excited about. And I thought the whole game turned on the Wilson hit. I think everybody
Game 4.
Yeah, I think everybody knows that.
Carrier.
That whole game took that hit and the goal that followed it and the momentum that changed came from that hit. And I don't like to be a spoil sport, a complainer. But the officiating has been questionable in the playoffs.
Suspect, It's been inconsistent, that's for sure.
Yeah. And a friend of mine was asking me about it the other night because he knows that I refereed for many, many years, and I'm really hesitant to criticize officials because I know what it's like. I've been on I've never been on a National Hockey League rink before, but I've refereed games in front of 3,000 or 4,000 people, and it's intimidating and it's tough. You have to be on your game. But I was suggesting that as the league expands and more games go on the schedule, and now there are 4 officials you need for every game, the pool of officials becomes diluted a little bit. Yeah. And I know nobody thinks that, there are people in the National Hockey League who are refereeing who don't belong there. But there are some nights where you think to yourself, what on earth? Like, what didn't you see?
You know who we could get in here to talk about that, or maybe we would have to get him on Zoom? I'd love to. Is Dave Jackson. I think he might live out in Colorado.
He does.
Yeah. From the West Island originally.
We saw him last year at Strangers in the Night, and we had a nice conversation and said we'd love to have him on the podcast. So when he comes back to Montreal, which I think he does in the summertime,
I'm going to send him a note.
We should drag his butt in here and get, because I could talk to referees all day.
Yeah, and Dave's a smart guy, and he's an articulate guy. Yeah, he's a big guy too. I had no idea. He looks like a hockey player.
Well, he was a hockey player, and now he's made himself a nice. Made a nice spot for himself on ESPN. Yeah. They go to him. Like when the football guys go to Gino Bizzanomi there, what's his name? I forget his name.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
On the NFL broadcast, they always have
whenever
him
there's a controversial call, they go to him.
Well, Dave does that for ESPN.
Yeah. Nice guy. And he said he'd be happy to come in if ever it works out. That Tom Wilson, he's one of those guys who you hate when he's on the other team, but boy, would you like to have him on your team.
Yeah, well,
Claude Lemieux used to be like that.
Yeah, he was.
I was talking to my friend Zach yesterday about Claude Lemieux, and I remember Tom. You remember Tom Watt, who used to coach for Vancouver?
Yeah, he coached the Jets for a while too.
Did he? Yeah, great sense of humor, and this goes back. I think this goes back to like the late '80s. In '86, when the Canadiens won the Cup, Lemieux was a rookie. Him and Patrick Waugh were both rookies, and they were instrumental in that surprise run to a Stanley Cup championship. And I guess it was Lemieux scored a couple of big overtime goals in those playoffs. And somebody was interviewing Tom Watt the next year, and he was mad at Lemieux about something. And he says, then you got overtime Lemieux there. He says, love him or hate him, you got to hate him.
But that's the feeling like with Wilson.
Yeah, love him or hate him, you got to hate him
when he's not on your team. Exactly. What do you think? I saw a quick clip earlier of Eric Engels and Tony Marinaro on Tony's podcast that many, many people watch, especially during the playoffs. And I think Tony was saying he doesn't think they can pull it out of the fire.
No, I don't either.
Yeah,
they're down 3-1. And Washington's an awfully good hockey team. They're an experienced hockey team, a lot of veteran players. And I think they've got the killer instinct to put the Habs away. But like I say, the fact that they made the playoffs, like they're on the schedule that management set out. They're advancing. They're they're improving in the increments. I think that management was looking for, and then hopefully next year they'll take it to another level. I wanted to mention one more note. This was actually a response I got to one of my tweets during Game 3 from Christelle Glodo, who said, first time to watch it last night with some girlfriends from beginning to end. Believe it or not one of us is so into hockey. No, believe it or not, one of us is so into hockey that she tells us the background of all the Habs players. We're a bunch of Filipino immigrants in our mid-30s, LOL. That was surprisingly fun.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, a bunch of gals from the Philippines who know nothing about hockey, loving the Habs.
Yeah. You know who's got that odd, I guess, I don't know if it's a skill or what it is, but it's kind of like a Rain Man quality that my wife has. We'll be watching a hockey game or a football game, and I'll say, I think I've heard that name before. And she'll say, I'm pretty sure he played for Calgary. He was drafted by Colorado. Well, what?
Really? Eh?
Yeah. And I go
Is
online.
she a big fan?
Well, she's a fan,
obviously.
Yeah, she's a hockey fan, but
so she just retains the stuff.
Yeah, she's not diving into, she's not doing drafts or pools or anything like that, but she always seems to have this Rain Man quality where if you need to know anything about somebody on the rink, she'll tell you who drafted them. And
really?
Yeah,
it's funny.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, she's smart, Jess.
She is very, very smart.
That's you see that with a lot of smart people, like Charlie Bird, my son. Charlie's very smart, and he's Rain Man with cars.
Yes,
he knows everything there is to know about cars, and he's been that way since he was like 5 years old. Yeah, and when he was just little, he could always name you the brand and model of a car. Like when he was 4 or 5 years old, a car would go by and he'd go Jaguar.
Yeah.
And another one would go by and he'd go Mercedes. Yeah. But only high-end cars.
Yeah.
Those were the only ones that he would recognize. And then as he got older, he got to know them all. And
You've never heard him say the word Pinto.
No. No. And I remember we were at a back when I used to make money, where we were at a Mercedes dealership, and he was rattling off. He was maybe, how old would he have been at that time? Maybe 8, 9. He's rattling off specs to the salesman, and the salesman's like,
what's with the kid?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. And then one time, Mika Hakkinen came in to show him, former two-time F1 champion, and he came in. He had retired by then. He was doing a promotional tour. I think he was promoting vodka or something. Probably he's Finnish.
Yeah.
So I brought Charlie in that morning because I knew he was coming in, and I introduced him, and Charlie says to him, Charlie was maybe 5 or 6 at the time. Charlie says to him, "You ever drive a Bugatti?" And Mika Hakkinen says, "No, but I'd love to try one, 1,000 horsepower." And Charlie says, 1,001. Because that's what it is. or what it was at the time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Charlie fact-checking Mika Hakkinen.
Yeah, the F1 driver. That's fun. Last thing on the Habs, and this is neither here nor there, and it's just, asshole on the couch. Did you think he pulled the goalie? Martin St. Louis pulled the goalie too early. 2:47 on the clock.
It was early.
Yeah.
Was it too early? I don't know. I don't know.
I just thought I'd bring it up. Yeah. Must mention, we in our circle of friends, we're often referring to what we refer to as, I guess, old man noises. And there's a get up noise, so that there you go when you're getting up, and there's the sit down noise. There you go. And the other day, after I was finished a conversation with Ted on the phone, I now realize there's a hang up noise. So Ted says to me, "All right, well, okay, I guess we'll talk to you tomorrow." I said, "Okay, see you later." And then I heard before the phone disconnected, there was this odd.
You know why I think that was? Because I was on my recliner and I had it fully reclined, so I basically was lying down on my back.
Okay, got it.
So when I was hanging up my phone, I was like,
And you know when people think they've hung up, but there's like 2 seconds there before they disconnect? So I called them back and I said, "Hey, Gramps."
That was the funniest part, that you called me right back to say, "Hey, you made a hang-up noise."
Just keep your eyes peeled if you're of a certain age for the hang-up noise.
Yeah, and it was also a reminder that you get to an age where you do things that you don't realize you're doing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the worst one of all is the food thing. I work very hard at controlling the spitting food.
Yeah, me too, but it doesn't always work.
So there are some things, and I realize this now. I was talking to a friend of mine, my friend David Snively, who's been a long-time trainer in the world we were talking about.
In the fitness world.
In the fitness world, yeah. David is a very famous fitness guru who's, had a clientele, the same clientele, some of them for, 40 years. And David and I were talking, and David's 65 now. and we were talking about some of the things that happen when you get into your 60s and some of the things that don't work exactly the way they used to. You know, like you think you can reach over to a certain place and you go to reach and you think, oh, God, oh, boy. You know, I don't feel, we've talked about this on the podcast before, I don't feel 1,000. But every once in a while, you get a little reminder.
Yeah, well, I strained a muscle in my back swimming the other day.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Well, and it's the kind of thing where in your head, you're still in your 40s.
Oh, yeah.
But your body.
40s? I'm still in my 30s.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and your body's going, I got news for you, pal. Yeah. Let's talk about Sugar Sammy and English shows, shall we? Sugar Sammy is a proud sponsor of the podcast, by the way.
He's got a series of English shows this summer, specifically for unilingual Anglophones in Montreal. So as Sammy says, in other words, what was it he said? West Islanders, somebody else, and Mark Carney.
Yeah. Going to be all English shows. And what you want to do is you want to go to sugarsammy.com and you can actually, I hate to say get in line, but that's
basically
what you're doing.
Yeah, you sign up to get on the ticket list.
Yeah, and it's not complicated. You know, like many other things, you sign up early, or you sign up for early access to ticket links for the upcoming English shows in Montreal and June, and you can also do the same for shows in Canada, Europe, and the U.S. He's got tickets for Quebec City, Gatineau, and Dubai on sale on the website now. And for the English shows that'll be in the summer in June, you can sign up there and you'll get information as to where you should get tickets. We normally would have a clip for Sugar Sammy, but we didn't line one up because we've got some scheduling issues this week. But if you go to sugarsammy.com, you can click on shows. And when you click on shows, you will see the quote from the New York Times that says, a fearless comic with a talent for provoking both laughter and outrage. And you can search your show by country and province and city. And there is immediately a bunch of shows that come up and shows you can sign up for. He's got shows in England, in Miami, in Tampa. There's a lot of shows all around the world, and you can also watch clips of Sammy's crowd work, which he is now a legend.
Famous for,
very famous for doing it.
Sugarsammy.com, and of course he's on all the major social media platforms as well. You can see his clips on Instagram, on Facebook, and on the Twizzler.
Yes, there you go. You mentioned the Harry Rosen thing, Ted. How did we get talking about Harry Rosen?
The pictures of
two guys in T-shirts.
Yeah, the pictures of the Montreal Canadiens on their way from, I think they were on their way from the hotel to the rink in Washington before Game 1 of the playoffs, and they were all dressed in these unbelievably beautiful hand-tailored suits.
We were talking about it last week, weren't we?
Yeah. And you had mentioned, I had said those are not off the rack, and we started talking about tailor-made suits, and you had mentioned Harry Rosen.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, a couple of days later, an article pops up, I think it was in the Globe and Mail, about Harry Rosen and how their business is kind of being passed on to the next generation, the third generation of Rosens. And they're just babies, by our standards anyway.
Yeah.
Like they're 35 and 33 years old. The two, I think it's Ian and Graham maybe, who are running the company. And there's a third brother who's an older brother who's a lawyer who's involved but not in day-to-day operations. But it's a really good article about a family business that talk about attention to detail and honoring the founder's legacy, their grandfather. And their father now their father has been meticulous in how he has organized and overseen the passing of the torch to this new generation. And I think the new generation is already talking about how they're going to groom their sons or daughters.
Where can we find that article, by the way, if you want to read it?
These are all good questions.
Okay, because I found it a fascinating article, and I was really taken with the family's attention to succession. You know, there's,
yes, exactly.
There's a saying in business that shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. It's an adage that suggests while the first generation builds wealth, the second manages it, and the third squanders it.
That's not going to happen here.
That's not going to happen here. And listen, we're not getting anything from Harry Rosen. Like I said, Ted and I are 2 guys sitting here in Walmart T-shirts. Well, at least mine is from Walmart.
Well, also $700 for a shirt. That's how much I spend on clothes like a year, if that.
Anyway, if you're curious about good business stories, this is a really, really interesting article about how the family paid attention to detail and introduced the kids to the business. I think in the article, the dad said he showed a spreadsheet to the kids when they were like 13 and said, this is how it works.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do. This is why you have to go to business school. And the kids went to business school.
And then went and worked for other companies before they came to Harry Rosen.
Yeah, and it's something that obviously works. I remember Jeff Molson telling me that Jeff spent some time in Atlanta working for Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah?
And like working on the floor, lifting cases of Coke onto trucks and doing that kind of work and learning about the beverage business because, as you know, he now runs the Molson empire along with the Montreal Canadiens. And it seems to be a hallmark of families that are trying to make these 3rd and 4th generations keep the businesses working, that the kids have a plan early. And I just thought it was a fascinating piece. I wish we could steer people to that.
Well, you know what? Just Google Globe and Mail Harry Rosen.
So it was a Globe and Mail piece.
It was a Globe and Mail piece, yeah. I'll put it on our, when we're done recording the podcast, I'll put it on our social media platforms. Maybe we can use that as a segue as well because, you know, that speaks to the Rosen story and the Molson story speaks to succession and how it's done right and how there's no sense of entitlement.
Yes.
That the next generation is taught and learns that, you know, you earn it. You know, here's your opportunity, but you need to earn this.
Yes.
As opposed to Shedeur Sanders.
Yes.
The quarterback, who Deion Sanders' kid, who was convinced he was going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL and ended up being drafted in the 5th round, 144th overall, and there was a big stink about it.
He hemmed his way out of it, didn't he? You know what I mean? He behaved like a...
Yeah, he behaved like an entitled, petulant child, and teams wanted no part of that.
Yeah.
They don't want a guy who thinks he's bigger than the team, and that's obviously what Shedeur Sanders thinks or thought. Whether he's learned his lesson, I don't know.
I don't think so.
But that comes from his father.
Yes.
Anyone who calls himself prime time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just huge sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
And apparently his interviews with teams would have potential draft picks in for interviews. He was wearing headphones during the interviews. He wasn't listening to the questions that they were asking him. And it's just, and of course, naturally, teams are being accused of, and the league is the NFL is being accused of racism. Oh, they didn't draft him. They let him go to the 5th round to teach him a lesson because he's a black man. Well, I got news for you. The first 3 selections overall were black men.
Yeah, I don't think, especially when it comes to the success of your football franchise, you want the best people available.
Yeah.
And
Cam Ward went 1st overall, black quarterback.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter went 2nd overall, black receiver and cornerback who played with Shedeur Sanders at Colorado. Abdul Carter went 3rd overall, black linebacker to the New York Giants. And people were saying, well, the Giants are racist because they've never drafted a black quarterback and they had a chance to take Shedeur Sanders. The Giants signed 2 black quarterbacks in free agency during the offseason, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. So that just doesn't wash. That argument doesn't wash. And it's so obvious to anyone who's paying attention that this is all about him having a shitty attitude.
Yeah, it's not about race. It's about arsehole.
Yeah.
We don't want an arsehole playing with our club. That article, by the way, that sparked this discussion is the first thing that comes up. If you Google Harry Rosen in the Globe and Mail, It's the first thing that comes up, and there's a picture there of Graham, Larry, and Ian Rosen representing the second and third generations. It says, the article says, helping sustain and grow the Toronto-based luxury menswear store that Harry Rosen founded in 1954. And I'm glad to read that because I have to say that I was really kind of saddened by the disappearance of the Bay. You know, the Bay has been mismanaged for a long time, and that's a great Canadian brand that has gone by the wayside. I wonder what they're going to do with the store downtown because they're all going to close. But when you see a store like Harry Rosen, I don't know if you've ever been, Harry Rosen stores are beautiful.
Yeah.
They're beautiful, and they have beautiful clothes. They've got stunning.
You don't have to be a clothes horse either to appreciate
you just,
nice clothes.
I don't wear a suit but maybe twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. But I have an appreciation for a really nice suit.
Yeah, as do I.
Yeah.
And this was a cool article.
Yeah, really
I'm not
good
a businessman or a clothes horse, but I really enjoyed reading the article.
Yeah.
It was a nice family story.
Yeah,
actually.
it really was. And it says tailor-made rolls help Harry Rosen transition to third generation, which puts to an end that shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves commentary. And like I said, if you just Google Globe and Mail Harry Rosen, because that's what I just did when Ted was talking, that article comes up at the top.
There you go.
And you'll be able to find it if it's interesting to you like it was to us.
Want to hear a nice story?
I do.
Speaking of families,
I do.
This one might make you cry.
Okay, you know how easily I cry.
You already know this story, but I'll share it. Robert Richer Jewelers, one of the sponsors of the program, is co-owned by Linda Richer, whose dad started the company back in the 1950s, and Linda's husband, Pierre Soucy. And Pierre's sister, Carol Soucy, works at the store, and she sent us a note this week and said, I want to share a quick story with you about either being in retail for the money or truly caring about your clients and going above and beyond. A client of the store, an elderly lady, pre-ordered a diamond from Antwerp. Pierre goes to Antwerp twice a year at the invitation of the diamond factories to handpick diamonds for his clients. She lost her husband last year and told us it was a gift from her late husband. She bought it in his honor and told herself in her heart it was from him. Friday, she was in the store and Pierre showed her the diamond she had ordered. That's not the part of the story I'm trying to convey, says Carol. She saw the diamond and was very impressed by his choice for her, after which Pierre proceeded to explain that while in Antwerp, he had the diamond engraved, and yes, you can engrave a diamond. It's microscopic, but you can engrave it.
That's fascinating itself.
Yeah, with a message of the husband's love for her, and he didn't charge her for it.
Wow. This is what we talk about when we talk about family-run businesses.
Carol says, now who would think about doing that but my brother? She cried, I cried. It was a very touching moment. So kind-hearted and something she won't forget. Isn't that something?
That's absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
When we tell you about the Riches and we tell you about going to see them and we tell you that you're going to enjoy the experience just by meeting the family, this is what we're talking about.
Good folks.
Yeah, really, really good folks. And whether you are looking for something spectacular for a big occasion that requires a larger line of credit, or you're looking for something simple, grad season is coming up. If you're looking to pop the question, that kind of thing, they can handle it all. Yeah. They can handle it all. And they can find you something absolutely spectacular, and they can show you something simple and, relatively inexpensive. So don't be intimidated like I used to be by jewelry stores. This one is the best.
Yeah. We're gonna be there. Hopefully, this is in the planning stages, but Terry and I are going to do a meet and greet at Robert Richer Jewelers. I believe June 7th. Is the date that we're
penciled
looking at.
in. And we're going to spend a couple of hours there, and we'd love to see you come and visit us.
309 Dorval Avenue in Dorval, right across from the Hujaka Fibbits.
Right, and you can park at the Hujaka Fibbits.
That's right, and walk across the street.
Yes. I am the frito bendito.
There's a 1970s reference for
big time. Yeah, there's a commercial that wouldn't get made today.
Bit of a stereotype.
Yeah, Twitter would lose its mind.
A Mexican who robs people.
Roy Thomas Baker died last week. He was 78 years old, and if you're wondering who I'm talking about, Roy Thomas Baker was a record producer who worked with the Rolling Stones. He worked with Keith Richards, with Ronnie Wood. He produced Queen 1. He produced Night at the Opera. He produced the Cars debut, Panorama, Shake It Up, all the Cars.
So he did what Bob Rock does at Bob Rock's level, kind of thing.
Nazareth, David Bowie, The Who, Head Games by Foreigner. This guy was the ears behind the soundtrack to my teen years. And I was sad to see that he's left the party. He was 78 years old. And I thought to myself, those are the days when, if I bought a Night at the Opera, and I did, you'd put the record on the turntable and you'd sit on the bed or on the floor of your bedroom and grab the jacket and begin to read it.
With your dinner plate-sized headphones on.
And begin to read it cover to cover. Lyrics, and I would go through all of it. I would go through the art direction. I would, and I'd see the engineer's name and wonder, who did that and what is that and how does that work? And I've said this before, record producers are like film directors. And they determine the sound of the album and put together, they help the band put an album together in terms of what songs go on it, how those songs sound. And for example, if you know A Night at the Opera, if you know
that's a Queen album.
That's a Queen album. If you know the album Jazz, for example, by Queen, and think of the song Bicycle Race. When I say the song Bicycle Race, you can hear the beginning of that song where the band is bicycle, bicycle. That sound came out of the brain of Roy Thomas Baker. And I wanted to mention it because I don't think they, unless you're a really, really big star producer, you like Bob Rock, like Roy Thomas Baker, like Mutt Lange, you don't get the attention you deserve. And Roy Thomas Baker left such a catalog of work behind. I encourage you, and it's hard to do now because if you're on Spotify and you say to Siri, "Hey, play Bicycle Race," you don't see an ad. You don't see an album cover. You don't see anything that gives you any information about that song and how it came together, or that album and how it came together. So I thought I would pay tribute.
That's true. That's a great point. The album, the listening experience, it was richer when we were younger.
It really was.
Yeah, and that's not just two old guys saying it was. I'm not saying it was better, but it was richer. There was more to it.
I've talked about the Elton John album ad nauseum on the podcast for the last few weeks. Elton John and Brandi Carlile, we bought the vinyl. And Jess put it on the turntable a couple of weeks ago, and I sat with the cover. And if you're an Elton John fan and you remember the Captain Fantastic album, or you remember the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album, you remember how in-depth those covers were and how you could really literally spend hours just looking at it over and over and over again. The cartoon-like illustrations on Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, the booklet that came inside the Captain Fantastic album, the new album, Who Believes in Angels, I think it's called. I should know that because I've listened to it 1,000 times. The vinyl package is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. There's a booklet in it like Captain Fantastic. There's a list of all of the lyrics. There's a list of who produced it. And I was looking at all the credits and then went on Google and found out, I don't have his name in front of me, but the man who produced that Elton John record is a Montrealer. How about that?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That's my, how about that story? Anyway, all of that to say that, pay attention to your producers and credits.
Yes, they still get their royalty checks though, right? Yeah, I think they're probably quite substantial.
They sure are.
Yeah.
I remember when I was working in the music business, If you wanted to hire a producer, they took a flat. You had to pay them up front, a flat fee, and then a percentage of all album sales.
Right.
So it could be very lucrative.
Does Bob Rock have his own island? Did someone tell me he has his own island, or does he just live on one?
Yeah, he lives on one in Hawaii. I don't think he has his own island, but let's just say he doesn't live in the suburbs.
No.
Yeah. I remember interviewing him once, and he explained to me that where he lived in Hawaii, he was just out of reach of the signal, the satellite signals coming from Canada for hockey games. So he bought a bigger dish and had it installed so he could watch hockey games from Hawaii.
And he didn't ask how much, probably.
No.
Install that.
Yeah, I need a bigger dish.
Yeah.
You're going to need a bigger dish. Yeah.
Tell me this. What do you think when you see someone like Brian May, the guitarist for Queen, or Robert Plant with the same hair that they had in the 1970s, and they're pushing 80 years old? What's going on there, I wonder? And I'm not saying that to be, I'm not making fun of them, but I see that, like I see Brian May and I think, man, you're 78 years old and you've still got like a big perm from the 1970s. Why don't you, like John Paul Jones, who was the bass player for Led Zeppelin, he's got a normal haircut, and he just looks like a bloke in his 70s now. Jimmy Page still has long hair, but it's not styled like it was in the 1970s, and he looks like a cool old guy.
Right.
But I find that Robert Plant and Brian May with that perm, it's to me, it's like, you don't need to hang on like that, man. You're Robert Plant. You're Brian May.
Get a haircut for Christ.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the bottom line.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, look at that.
I'm thinking to myself,
No, I know what you're
why
saying.
is your why? You know, you don't. It just seems like their identity is totally tied up in who they were 50 years ago.
That would be my guess. I think if you're, it's part of Brian May's look, I think.
Yeah, but he's a grandpa
Yeah,
now. It's not a grandpa hair. It's not. That's not grandpa hair.
I get it. But I think if you, I was going to say if you have a PhD in physics, which is what I think he has. But if you've been known as one of the best guitarists on the planet for all those years, and the hair kind of is always with you and falls with you when you play and whatever, maybe it's. Listen, maybe he just doesn't want to give into it. Maybe he doesn't want to admit it. He still plays the guitar. He still does the odd gig.
I didn't know he had a PhD in physics. Actually, that explains a lot, because a lot of academics are like that. They're they march to their own drummer.
Yeah,
I guess that's what it is. And again, I'm not trying to be critical or anything. I just when I see them, I think to myself, as you said, get a goddamn haircut.
I think that it probably has something to do. With you're right, his identity as the one of the most famous guitarists in the world, and that is how you recognize. But
he can still be one of the most famous guitarists in the world and be Brian May, but without the ridiculous pompadour. I'm sure he's very concerned about my opinion about his look.
He has a degree in physics. He's got a Bachelor of Science in Physics. I had to look it up because I didn't want to get it wrong. He has a PhD in astrophysics.
Wow.
So I guess that's
and
part
here
of
I am telling him to get a haircut.
Well, maybe it's, like you say, maybe it's part of his eccentricity.
Yeah. Eccentricity.
Eccentricities. But good point. And I'm trying to think of somebody who had a I'm thinking of Mo Salah, because now I'm a soccer fan, and because we just watched Liverpool win the championship in the Premier League. Mo Salah used to have a big head of hair, and that's the way I identified him on the pitch.
Okay.
And then he got a haircut, like a small, short kind of very British haircut.
Yeah.
And for a while, I couldn't recognize him because I was missing the big.
Yeah. So he lost his identity for you?
Yeah. Well, I was just having trouble recognizing him on the pitch, which I'm sure he doesn't worry about. But I think all of that to say, I think for people of high profile like that, that's part of their identity.
Yeah.
I think.
Speaking of music, did you see the video? I shared a video on Facebook of these kids called the Greystones from Northern California. They're like teenagers, and they do classic rock covers.
Yes.
And R&B and soul covers. And God, they're good.
Are they
old souls, like they're old souls. You know,
I love
these
to
are
see
all.
that.
Yeah, they're teenagers. They're in their mid-teens, and they do Sade, and I forget what else I saw. A Doobie Brothers song.
Yeah,
and they're really good.
Yeah,
like they're really good.
Really talented.
How good are they going to be in 10 years?
Unbelievable.
When they've got more polish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are they called again?
They're
Look
called
them up.
The Greystones. They're called. And I think there is another band called the Greystones, but these are the Greystones who are teenage kids. I don't know if they do original material. I hope so, because I would like to hear what they can do on the original front, because their covers are just fantastic.
It's fun to discover that. Eh?
Yeah.
That happens sometimes. I'll be on YouTube looking for something else, and you'll fall onto a video like that you want to share with friends.
Yeah, well, there's a great cover band coming to, I think they're coming to the casino in
the Russian guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Leonid and Friends, they're called.
Yeah.
They're Russian musicians who do classic rock covers. Chicago is their specialty.
25 or 624. If you closed your eyes, you'd swear to God you were listening to Chicago.
They absolutely crush it. Yeah. They're like polished professional musicians.
Yeah.
And
what are they called again?
Leonid and Friends. Leonid and Friends.
Yes.
And they are so good. They are so good. Another good cover band. And I like doing this now. I like going, I'm stuck in the past, I guess, the way Brian May and Robert Plant are to some extent, in that I like to listen to the music I grew up on, but I like to hear different versions of it.
Yeah.
So I go to bands like Leonid and Friends and listen to their covers of stuff I grew up on. The Lexington Lab Band is another band that does absolutely fantastic classic rock covers.
Sunday, June 8th, a tribute to Chicago, Leonid and Friends at the Cabaret du Casino de Montréal. And they're on tour all summer. They'll be in the States for most of the month of May, but here on Sunday, June 8th. And I said to Jess, hey, you want to go see Leonid and Friends? And she said, no.
Didn't she say go with Ted?
Yeah, go with Ted. That's exactly right. Anyway, check them out. If you're a music fan, I think you'd get a kick out of it.
Yeah, watch the video 25 or 624 or
stunning.
I'm a Man is another good one that they do.
Stunning.
And they cover other bands as well. They do Great Earth, Wind and Fire stuff. They do a great cover of is it Lighthouse? What were some of Lighthouse's hits?
Yeah, Lighthouse. Sunny Days is one.
Not that one.
Other ones.
Yeah. Anyway, they do a great Lighthouse cover as well.
I may as well mention this because I wrote it down and I thought I got to find a spot to mention it. I read this week that The Faces, Rod Stewart's old band, last album they had out was 1973, 52 years ago. Jesus. Rod Stewart, who's now 80, and we saw in Vancouver just a year and a half ago, still has it. His voice is still there. He still has energy. He looks like $1 million. Well, he has $1 million. And at 80 years old, him and the guys in The Faces have apparently put 11 new songs down, and they're talking about releasing an album next year. That's not stunning news or big news, but if you're a classic rock fan like I am, and The Faces, Stay With Me is one of the all-time great classics. It looks like they're going to try again and put out another record. How about that? Yes?
Yes, sir.
It's a good one?
Yeah, the old 52 years, eh?
52 years ago.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Wow.
I was in grade 8.
I don't remember what grade I was in.
You would have been in grade 9 because you're a year older than me. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm getting my winter tires off tomorrow. So
oh, are you?
Do not. Ted got his winter tires off, and it snowed
the next day.
Bastard.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, but that was like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, so, surely to God we're out of the woods now.
I sure hope so. I called about a week and a half ago, and I said, just find me an appointment on Wednesday. Wednesday's a day that works for me. And Kara said, done. Come and see us on the 30th. So I'll be at the Mersons tomorrow.
As we record this, and this is on Tuesday,
Yes.
the 29th of April, it's 23 degrees and there are thunderstorms.
Okay, so I should be okay.
Yeah. Tomorrow is sunny and cooler. Wednesday is sunny and cooler, about 15 degrees.
And that's a look at the weather.
Yeah, that's right. It's become a weekly feature,
It is,
yeah. You're not going to get your rabies, though.
No, I won't get my rabies, but I don't care because I'll tell you what I'm excited about. I'm excited about seeing Cara and Celso, the people in the waiting room, and Charlie and the crew. I'm excited to see Valerie and everybody at the place.
It's almost like going to see family.
It is. Yeah. It's like a family visit. I'm excited to go. I haven't been since last year when I had my winter tires put on.
When I say rabies, of course, I'm referring to the 10% discount or rabais en français. That's on tire installation, but that was only before the middle of April. Now, if you want to leave your winter tires on until after May 20th, you can get that 10% discount on tire installation. You can also get rebates on Yokohama tires until May 31st. Rebates of up to $125 on select tires at Merson Automotive on St. Jacques, just west of Cavendish, and online at mersonauto.com. Should we do the tweet sheet?
Yes, we should do the tweet sheet. Just wanted to mention, I was asking Ted this morning, do the potholes seem deeper just before you write a check to the government at tax time?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I didn't owe the government any money this year above and beyond what I pay them in GST and PST for any personal contract services that I do. But I was hitting potholes pretty hard last night, actually, on the way home from downtown.
Yeah,
I hit a couple on the 20.
Moving back to Quebec, we forgot about moving back to Quebec.
Yeah.
Because let's just say the tax system is different in British Columbia and Stedden and Bunclac.
Is our climate that much different, or is it poor maintenance that causes the potholes, or is it a combination of the two?
I think it's deep-seated corruption.
Really?
I do.
Yeah?
I really do.
You think people are lining their pockets on pothole road repairs?
We have been talking about this since I was in my teens. I remember my parents talking about this all those years ago, about roads that were constantly paved and then repaved and then repaved and repaved. And, you know, in this day and age of deficits and debt and everything else, get a load of this story. We know people that are at the Sacré-Cœur Hospital in a unit this week. Somebody went to visit somebody at the Sacré-Cœur Hospital and said, it's awfully dark in here. And the orderly said, yeah, they don't turn the lights on except on Thursdays and Fridays at night because there's no money.
At a hospital.
At a hospital. How's that for managing your finances? So I've always thought Quebec has never been great at, for example, and this is a comparison I can make because I lived in British Columbia. So in British Columbia, near our house, when there was a construction project going up in the spring, the sign would go up saying, a project of the government of BC, this blah, 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 from May of 2023 till October of 2023. And the work would start and the traffic would build. And then in October of 2023, it would be finished and done and over with. And last week, I read that the LaFontaine Tunnel project, which is an ongoing project you know about if you live on the South Shore, is now slated to cost 5 times. This was on the front page of the Journal de Montréal. 5 times its original budget. 5 times. So I don't know what the number is, but how do you screw that up that badly? And that's been going on since I can remember. It happened during Expo. Olympics. It happened at the Olympics. It happens with digging of metro tunnels and building of highways. And it's always So I have always thought it's deep-seated corruption. Yeah. And, you know, as I'm writing this rather large check that I have to write to the government, and
for
it's
your taxes.
Yeah, and it's on me because we didn't properly prepare for moving back to Quebec. C'est ma faute. I get it. You know, I got to pay my taxes like everybody else. it stings a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, I'm glad somebody's getting rich because I'm not.
Yep. That's my little story. All right. Are we getting to the tweet sheet? Okay.
Let's see if we can put a smile on your face with the funny from Twitter this week from @I am Farticus. This may be the heroin talking, but I could really go for some heroin.
I am Farticus.
Isn't that great?
I like that.
PHARTACUS.
Yeah. That's great.
From @Shea Goulet. Remember encyclopedias? My God, we were barbarians. I think we had 2 sets of encyclopedias in our house. We had the kids set, and then we had the grown-up set.
You know what I remember about encyclopedias was the way they smelled.
Oh, yeah?
You know, after they'd been in the house for like 15, 16 years, they had an encyclopedia smell.
Always fresh because no one ever looked at them. And from @NotInCharge7, cause of death, tiny spider on the steering wheel. I knew you'd like that. It's the visual of what happens after you realize there's a spider on your steering wheel.
That's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you're going into the ditch or head on into the lumber truck coming the other way because you're going, that's a spider. I got a bonus tweet, by the way.
Oh, do you?
It's the one that you sent me last night during the election.
Yes.
Can we put that one up, Matthew?
Yeah, I know which one. This is funny.
Yeah, this made me laugh. From @LeBron McLean. Every English Canada riding is named like Toronto Centre or Vancouver East, while every Quebec riding is named something like 50 îles et les haricots verts en.
It's very true.
And he also did a follow-up tweet. He said, I wish we followed the English tradition of having ridings named Applewood upon Cheddarshire and such.
I get that because we talked about this weeks ago.
When you had to mail something to your friends in England.
Yeah,
and the address
to the Solax.
The address was Yorkshire pudding upon lamb's breath.
Greenhouse number 2 at Avon. What? A shout out to the Solax who usually listen to the podcast. Let's before we talk about the mail, let's talk about our friends at Accutech. I was just texting with my wife. Power is out again up north. So yeah. Jess works from home.
Well, apparently it's quite windy today.
Yeah. Jess works from home, so that's a real issue. She's still employed in her job in British Columbia and does the work from the home office. So no power up north is pretty tough. But we do have a generator, and the folks at Accutech will tell you all about getting a generator and making sure it works for you and it's hooked up properly, because it's not something you just plug into the wall. You have to know what you're doing. And the folks at Accutech know what they're doing. It's a family-run business. Tom's dad started it in 1995. And if you need any kind of electric work at all, and it could be something simple as, you need to rewire one of the rooms in the house, or you're building a house and you need them to do the wiring for you, or you have an industrial project, they can handle that too. And Ted, you've been talking about this for weeks. They want to line themselves up with contractors who are building.
Yeah, it's that time of the year when construction season is starting, and Accutech wants to partner with contractors who want to build long-term relationships with tradespeople. We want to build trusting relationships, they say, where we are really planning partners with general contractors and other trades to make sure that work done for clients is well planned, organized, and delivered to a client's expectations. So if you are a contractor or in any of the trades and you're looking for an electrician to partner with, we strongly recommend Accutech. Tom and his team know what they're doing.
Yeah, when you call Accutech, it's Tom's wife that picks up the phone.
Trish.
So Trish picks up the phone and will tell you all you need to know, and they'll send somebody out to your place post haste. Accutech, ACUTECH.ca. That's where you find them.
They do residential and commercial electrical work, by the way.
And thanks to them for their support of the podcast. Now, let's talk about the mail. We didn't get a ton of mail this week. You can go to terryandtedpodcast.com and send us a letter through the website. You'll find on our newly revamped website, You'll find all the episodes from this season. You'll find a list of recommendations that I make every week on the podcast. And you'll find the clips that Ted selects from our episodes, including the Three Belly Laugh Guarantee every week. So go to terryandtedpodcast.com or you can email us directly.
Standing by the podcast at gmail.com.
Here's one. Hello to both of you. I've been a fan since the 90s, and I was thrilled when you started the podcast. I never miss an episode. We moved to Mont Tremblant in 2015, and I was wholeheartedly agreeing with you and laughing out loud when you mentioned the lack of lines on the 15, Ted, as well as the aggravating habit of people who insist on staying in the left lane. So very true. Based on your previous show recommendations, I would suggest you check out Lioness. I think you would enjoy it. Keep up the great work. It's a true pleasure listening to the two of you together again. Sandra Saboring sent us that. Sandra, thank you so very much. We appreciate that a lot. And I got a note this week from our friends at Walensky's. May 1st, Walensky's, the legendary spot down on Fairmont, is going to be 93 years old. They've been at that corner for 93 years. And Elisa Walensky sent me a note saying she'd love to see you guys. And tell Matthew he can come and join us. Come early if you can on the 1st of May, because it's going to be a very, very busy day. So, Elisa, thanks for listening to the podcast, and we'll try and get down there on May the 1st.
I've also turned our great and good friend Brenda Rodericks, the recently retired general manager of the Airport Marriott Interminal Hotel, onto your list of recommendations on the website, because she messaged me last week and said that she noticed that I subscribe to History Something or Other, which I don't. I must have just posted one of their videos, and I said, she said, "Is it any good? Is it worth watching?" And I said, "I'm not sure." I said, "But if you want good recommendations, go to the podcast website and look at Terry's recommendations, which he makes every week, because you always get good reviews on your reviews." Mm-hmm. So that's what she's doing now.
Well, she's retired, so she got more time to watch things. That's like right. Me. Yeah. This week, I'm going to talk about Friends and Neighbors. It's the new John Hamm series on Apple TV. And it's really, really good. It's got a terrific cast. And
drama, comedy?
Drama with a little sprinkle of comedy.
He's got great comedy chops.
Does he ever? Yeah. And in this, he plays in this series. I think it's such a great idea. He's a very wealthy trader who lives in a very wealthy neighborhood who loses his trading job. But he tries to maintain his...
the facade?
Yes, the facade of being a member at the club, keeping the house, and what he does is he begins stealing from everybody in the neighborhood. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but when you watch it, it's completely believable, and it's really terrific. And we love John Hamm in our house, so that's something that I highly recommend. It's called Friends and Neighbors. I think we're about 3 episodes in. And again, it's another one where you only get the episode every week.
That's Art Imitating Life. That actually happened in an old neighborhood where I used to live.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Somebody lost a gig and was burglarizing the...
Well, they weren't burglarizing, but there was a lot of... there was fraud and there was...
things disappearing.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah.
eh?
Yeah. And someone who everyone liked and was part of the gang.
That's the premise of this show. It's called Friends and Neighbors, and it's on Apple TV. Highly recommend it. And if you want to watch something for free, I love this guy named Graham Bensinger is his name. Graham Bensinger started a career very, very early on. He was on The Tonight Show when he was a young man, and now he has an online interview show. He draws really big guests. He gets lots of views, lots of subscribers. He's very, very, he's a successful guy, and I think a very good interview. It's called In Depth with Graham Bensinger, and you can find it on YouTube this week, a 2-hour sit down with Jay Leno. And I was never a massive Jay Leno fan, but Leno comes off to me, not everybody. I sent it to a friend of mine who didn't get the same view that I did. My buddy Doug Moore, who listens to the podcast every week, took different, got a different sort of view of Jay Leno watching this. I thought Jay came off as kind and thoughtful. And if you know the story of Jay Leno's wife, she is in the throes of dementia, and he's taking care of her.
Right.
And
didn't he get beat up a couple of years ago?
No, there was a story going around. He fell and his face got bruised.
Because the story that was going around was he owed money from gambling, and they.
But as Jay said, it's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it's addressed in the interview.
Not that particular. The fall that he took was addressed. Graham didn't corner him on the "did you get beat up" question. I think he cleared it up in media when the rumors started to break. Jay Leno banked his salary from The Tonight Show for 22 years. He was making $30 million a year, and he never spent any of it. He lived on his stand-up salary.
Wow.
And he's got a car collection that's worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, has its own building with all his cars in it. So Jay's answer to that was, first of all, I don't gamble, and if I owed anybody money, all I'd have to do is sell one of my Bugattis
to pay it off.
So anyway, if you're looking for something free that doesn't cost any money, you don't have to subscribe, whatever, I highly recommend In Depth by Graham Bensinger. Look at the Jay Leno interview if you're interested in that, or look at some of his earlier stuff. I think he's pretty terrific, and I love a good interview.
So would you describe Graham Bensinger as an influencer, to use the modern
No, I don't think so.
terminology?
I think he's a guy who always wanted his own interview show.
Is he? What's his background? Is he a journalist? Is he?
He started out, I think, studying journalism, if I'm not mistaken. And like I said, was on The Tonight Show as a very young man, has an interesting background story, and turned it into this career where he's got a lot of followers and a lot of people watching him online.
You know who I don't get, who's huge, but I don't get him for whatever reason, is Theo Von.
No, I don't understand.
It must be a younger generation thing. Matthew, you're a younger generation. Are you a Theo Von fan? Do you watch his or listen to his podcast?
I don't listen to his podcast, but I like him.
You do, eh? What do you like about him?
Funny.
Yeah? Yeah, because I don't get it. I just don't get it. Maybe it's a generational thing, but it goes over my head.
I just quickly looked it up. Graham Bensinger, he studied broadcast journalism at Syracuse University.
Oh, there you go.
And he left midway through his second year to pursue broadcasting full time. He became famous, as much as you could become famous in the day. His junior year of high school, he interviewed O.J. Simpson, set up a video camera. The footage ended up on Good Morning America. He ended up being interviewed by Diane Sawyer, and he ended up on The Tonight Show, and I guess it went from there.
Okay, how old a guy is he?
He's 38.
Wow.
Yeah, young man, very talented guy. So there's my recommendations for this week, and I guess that just about does it for this week's podcast.
You have to drive Mr. Magoo to the eye doctor now.
I do.
I have to go for an eye appointment,
Yes.
and they're putting drops in my eyes that preclude me from driving. So Terry is my chauffeur today.
Yes, sir, and glad to do it, by the way. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. We want to say thanks to our producer, Matthew Borgelli, who came in a little early this week so that we could
So
get
that Mr. Magoo could get
Mr.
to his
Magoo to the
appointment on
doctor.
time. Matthew, you don't know who Mr. Magoo is, do you? All right, we're not going to explain it.
Yeah.
It's a cartoon character who couldn't see anything. But he would drive anyway.
Yeah, he was a wealthy guy too, wasn't he?
I think so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You remember who did the voice?
No.
Jim Bacchus.
Oh, was it? Oh, from Gilligan's Island.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow, Mr. Howell.
That's right.
There you go.
Thurston Howell III.
There you go. There's Mr. Magoo.
Yeah.
Matthew just
found
found
him,
up on the screen. Our thanks to our producer, Matthew Borgelli. Our thanks to our executive producer, Jessica Dion. And also thanks to you for downloading the podcast. Again, we ask you to like and subscribe. Am I doing this right, Matthew? 5 stars on Spotify. Apparently it helps us out. I don't know why. It doesn't matter to me, but if you can do it, we'd appreciate that very much. And of course, a big thank you to our sponsors. I don't always do this every week, but I'm very, very grateful to the UPS store, to Sugar Sammy, to the gang at Accutech, to the lovely family at the Mersons and Robert Richer Jewelers. These people all took a flyer on us, and as the podcast continues to grow a little bit, we're pleased to have them along for a ride and deeply appreciative of their support. Hopefully you'll be able to visit and say, hey, I listen to the Terry and Ted podcast. That's what I'm doing here. Forgotten anything, Ted?
I don't think so. I think you've covered it all.
TerryandTedPodcast.com. Drop us a note there, too, if you like. See you next week.
Standing by, the Terry and Ted podcast has been brought to you by the UPS Store Canada, delivering full-service solutions for your small business.